Hi. As mentioned, my name is Glenn. You will be hearing from myself and from Philip Lingard, who many of you probably know, and also from Elliot Hiller. Is it not? Oh, I have to put it here. Oh, okay. All right. Sorry about that. I didn't think it was going to be this kind of show. So, how the blockchain is helping solve the global plastic crisis. Now, I'm going to say something here which is not going to be very popular, and that is I'm not very interested in blockchain personally. But what I am interested in is what it can do, right? So, I'm not technically well read on blockchain, and I don't need to be, because what I'm going to talk to you about tonight is what you can actually do with the blockchain as far as the environment is concerned. So, there we go. Yeah. So, my name is Glenn. A little bit about me. I was working in iGaming here for a while. My background is in marketing and advertising. I came down to Malta to work with one of the big iGaming companies, and I was there for 5 years. And then I got into the environment side of things, because obviously living in Malta, you become aware of, Malta has significant issues when it comes to the environment. And I had spent 27 years in Sweden before I came down here, so I had like an ingrained idea about personal responsibility in the environment, which was not obviously the same thing as I found when I came down here. So I got involved in doing various things, and then about a year ago, I was at an event hosted by Alberto, who's here for the first time this evening, and he introduced me to a gentleman by the name of Elliot Hiller, who is also here today. And Elliot told me something which was like a revelation for me, because the issues I was having out in the environment were there's just huge amounts of plastic everywhere you go. And it just seems not even to be an issue that was high on people's minds. So what he told me was that the company that he represents or he works for has actually developed a technology to recycle plastic back into oil. Now, that is a game changer, because plastic is made from oil in the first instance. And if you can convert plastic back into oil, you can convert it back into plastic, and then back into oil and back into plastic in a unending loop, which basically means we have created a circular economy for plastic. I'm not going to talk about that today. In fact, Philip's going to be talking about that. What I'm going to talk to you about is another thing which he also told me about, which is coming in a moment. So, a bit of background to the global plastic crisis. I don't want to bore you with this too much. It's everybody hears bad news about the environment. That's all you ever hear, and everything's going to shit. But in fact, we actually have some good news to tell you today. But the situation is, plastic pollution is the world's single largest existential threat after global warming. And now the why of that is, the fact is that we are making huge amounts of plastic at the moment, and we're in fact going to be making more of it in the future. So in 2022, 500 million metric tons of plastic were produced, and that's going to double by 2030 and triple by 2050. So if we have a problem with plastic now, imagine what it's going to be like in 2030, 2050 if we don't do something radical about it. Now, what happens to the plastic that we produce? Currently, 50% is sent to landfills, 19% is incinerated, 19% is incinerated, 9% is recycled, and 22% is mismanaged, which means it ends up in the oceans, just out in the environment. So, what happens to it once it's there? It hangs around for a long time, right? These are the typical times for plastic products to biodegrade, as they call it. In fact, plastic does not biodegrade. It breaks down into smaller and smaller particles, and they're still out there. So almost every molecule of plastic ever produced is still present in the environment at the moment. And that situation is going to get worse. So, some fun facts about microplastics. The global microplastic concentrations calculated between 12.5 and 125 trillion particles. That's today. That's what we estimate is out there today. When it rains, an average of 365 microplastic particles land on every square meter daily rainfall. Microplastic has been found in every environment on Earth, from the Arctic to the Mariana Trench, and microplastics are found in our food, water, in our blood, and plastic is not nice stuff, right? Fortunately, there are solutions, and that's what we're here to talk about today. Scalable and business-driven solutions to the global plastic crisis is what we need. The plastic crisis was created by global business and technology, and it can only be solved by it. So, I'm doing a very quick introduction to Corsair, and then Philip will talk more about it afterwards. But since 2020, Corsair have been recycling plastic waste into advanced bio-oil in Thailand and Finland, and hundreds more facilities are planned to be built. And as we said, this is used to make new plastic products of food and medical grade quality. But what Corsair also did in 2021 was they launched the CSR Plastic Credit, which enables individuals, businesses and organizations to offset their own plastic footprint. So this is where the blockchain comes into it. So the CSR Plastic Credit. But what are plastic credits? Everybody's heard about carbon credits, right? I mean, everybody has heard about the carbon credit scam, which people talk about. Well, what are plastic credits? So the World Wildlife Fund defines them as a transferable unit representing a specific quantity of plastic that has been collected and possibly recycled. And that's important, possibly recycled. Doesn't mean that they are recycling, it just means it could be recycled. And according to them as well, in the recent report, there's 32 different plastic credits on the marketplace, but there's no global standard definition. Now, CSR Plastic Credit is not included in that because when this report was written, it wasn't global knowledge. So now we actually have one plastic credit which does guarantee plastic recycling. So what is the CSR Plastic Credit? It's a TÜV certified ERC20 compliant RWA blockchain token contract deployed on the Ethereum network. Now, you all know more about that than I do. You'll know what that means. But it makes sense to me that this is something that we can talk about today, and this is why it's interesting for you guys. But at the same time, it's the only plastic credit that guarantees that plastic waste has been removed from the environment for recycling. Now, TÜV, the interesting thing about, and the important thing about TÜV is that this is the Technische Umweltwachungsverein. It's a global provider of auditing certification services, which basically means that there's no scam in this. When the CSR plastic credits are generated, it's completely transparent as well. So any accusations of greenwashing are completely irrelevant here. So, some facts behind the CSR. When CSR Plastic Credit was created, 10 billion credits were issued on the blockchain and stored in Corsair's treasury wallet. And that represents 1 billion kilos of plastic waste to be removed from the environment, because for every kilo of plastic that Corsair recycle, they release 10 CSR from that wallet out to the market. So what happens then is that companies buy those CSR plastic credits and they retire them, which means they're basically sent to a burn wallet with no extraction function. So they're basically removed from circulation forever. And so far, 20 million kilos of plastic has been recycled, which means 200 million retired CSR out of the 10 billion which were originally created. So how does it work? Companies that want to become plastic neutral, they calculate their annual plastic waste footprint. Now, this is what my business is. You see the logo up there, Certified Plastic Neutral. This is a business I set up as a licensed agent for Corsair to sell the plastic neutrality service for them. So I go to a company and I explain to them how it works. I say, we need to calculate what your plastic waste footprint is. They say, how does that work? And I say, well, we do a monthly assessment of how much plastic you are generating, and we weigh it. And when we have an average, we can calculate what your annual plastic waste footprint would be. They then buy CSR plastic credits to the equivalent amount of that. And that money is then used, I'll get back to it. And then they retire the CSR by sending it to the burn wallet, and they receive digital proof that they become certified plastic neutral. Now, the interesting and important thing here is that the certification is not coming from Corsair, it's coming from the blockchain. So it's total transparent. So a company can become plastic neutral, and when they do become plastic neutral, what does that mean for them? Well, it means that they can use plastic neutrality in their ESG reporting, for example. They can use it in their marketing. They can use it on products and on services. And what does it cost? At the moment, the cost of offsetting 1 kilo of plastic is 18 cents. Because 1 kilo of plastic is 10 CSR plastic credits. So, it's not huge amounts of money. And if anyone's interested to read more about the CSR, this is the website. You can scan that QR code there if you want to find out more and read more about it. So, the plastic neutrality movement is a global movement. So what you can see here are 3 recent cases of companies which have adopted plastic neutrality. The most recent one you can see there is Gioella. It's an Italian manufacturer of dairy products, and they purchased 13 million CSR and retired them, which is the equivalent of recycling 1.3 million tons of plastic. And then you can see the Wate International Airport in Laos has become the world's first plastic neutral airport. And BDMS is a chain of hospitals and clinics, 30 different hospitals and clinics in the chain. They've all gone plastic neutral as well. So these are the kinds of companies which are adopting it around the world. But there are companies and clients within hospitality, within health and wellness and manufacturing, construction, education, retail. I mean, every company out there on the planet can be a potential client for plastic neutrality because every company and every business generates plastic. But it's not just the companies that want to do good for the planet. These are not companies with a mission to save the planet. They're companies that they're leading the way. But the fact is, they're going to have to do it. There's going to be regulatory, there is already regulations coming from the EU, which will require 50,000 companies within the EU to report on what they're doing to reduce their environmental footprint. So 50,000 companies are going to have to start looking at how they're going to reduce their environmental footprint, carbon, plastic, sourcing, renewable energy source, and all that kind of stuff. So really, we're standing here with a product which is really, really interesting, and companies are going to have to buy it. So we're in like a perfect situation. A product which everybody actually wants to have and will actually have to have. So it's a luxurious position to be in. And then, again, it's the simplest ESG adaptation you can take. Going plastic neutral is so much simpler than trying to calculate what your carbon footprint might be, because there's so many different aspects of it. But with this, it's very simple. You can calculate how much plastic your company generates, and you can offset it, and it just, you can then focus on the more difficult parts of your ESG strategy. So, as I said, it's the low-hanging fruit, and every industry is potentially a customer for this. I have myself in Malta been speaking to companies within pretty much all of these industries, because as I said before, every business does generate plastic waste. So every business is potentially a client. So I've been speaking to recently companies within hospitality. I've met a number of hotels recently. Hotels are particularly interested in plastic neutrality because it means they can use it in their marketing, so they can become sustainable hotels. So, of course, it has a lot of cases from Thailand, primarily because they were originally set up there. Hotel chains which are offering plastic neutral hotel rooms, and it's cost them something like 7 cents a night per room, but they can market themselves as environmentally friendly. And I've met companies within food and beverage. I met a large, a company that everybody will know, I'm not going to say their name, who are looking into, because they are under the CSRD obligation, that are looking into doing exactly this kind of thing. So I'm having discussions with them. Medtech, pharma, retail. We have a project at the moment with one of Malta's biggest sports retailing companies, who are also importers and exporters, and they have 30 stores, and they have distributors all around the world, and they're looking into adopting plastic neutrality for that. And basically the world is our oyster. So yeah, and that's all from me.
I'm not doing that. There's only one. Oh my goodness. I'm blinded by the light. Thank you, Glenn. Glenn's been talking about how we use the Ethereum-based blockchain for generating the CSR plastic credits, and that means that any company anywhere in the world can acquire those credits, which represent retired plastic. What we're also doing in Corsair is actually the hard grind, which is recycling the plastic, as Glenn mentioned. What we've done, and many people are going down this route, but we take waste plastic and we put it in these things, these reactors, and that's a pyrolysis machine. And there's nothing particularly sexy about this or new. It's the same process which you use for making charcoal. You basically put the plastic in there, heat it up, and make sure it's oxygen starved. And the process breaks the plastic down so that, here we are, what comes out are various grades of bio-oil. There's roughly 2 parts heavy bio-oil, which is equivalent of diesel, 1 part which is a gasoline equivalent. Now, we have sold that for use in biofuels, but we're finding that by far and away the best use of this stuff is to blend it, and we have call-off contracts from some of the oil majors, and quite literally every drop we produce, we've practically got a queue of the oil majors who want to take this stuff to create 100% recycled plastic. And as Glenn mentioned, doing this, there's no limit to the number of times that the plastic can be recycled. At the moment, only about 5 to 10% of the plastic is being recycled, and that's a limited amount of plastic. Only plastic bottles can be recycled, and what they do is that mechanical recycling. You basically take the plastic bottle, shred it, pelletize it, and reform it into another plastic bottle, and that can only happen about 3 times. The other plastic, before we came along and managed to get this working, was really unusable for recycling. And we are the first company to have literally industrialized this process. So it's a little bit like being a cordon bleu chef. We've managed to get the technique right in terms of the mix of plastics which we put in there, and also the temperature and duration. And it is 100% recyclable, because 90% of the plastic which comes in there comes out like that. 10% roughly comes out as gas, and we use the gas to fuel the heat for the reactor. So all the plastic waste is being reused, and the impurities which come out, we actually even can sell those because it's black carbon which is used for pigmentation. So it is a truly recycling project, and we have truly cracked the problem of industrializing this. Literally, when we went live in Finland, we applied the same techniques which we've been using in Thailand, and the very first run, we produce oil with impurities of only 70 parts per million, which is way above the standard which a company like Shell requires in order to use this stuff for creating new plastic. So we're now in the process of looking to scale this up. We're talking to people all over the world and Malta about potentially putting these sorts of things to recycle as I say, that difficult to recycle plastic. And we're taking plastic literally from anywhere. In Thailand, we actually set up our plant next to a landfill. We mined the landfill and got all this dirty plastic out of it. We have, as Glenn mentioned, taking plastic from all around Bangkok, and the commercial enterprises collecting it because they don't have waste separation like we do in Europe, and using that And then the most exciting one for me is that we've done a deal with the cooperative of Thai fishermen, 100,000 of them. And of course, when you go fishing, you get a lot of plastic bycatch in the ocean. Now, that's great stuff for us because it comes ready washed. So we're paying the Thai fishermen for the waste plastic, which otherwise would have gone back overboard into the sea. So I just wanted to impress on you that this is what we're doing on the blockchain and in the virtual world is backed up by very real production. And as I say, I would expect within the coming months and years, we are going to globally scale. There is an infinite amount of waste plastic and an infinite demand for the recycled oil.